With that, we'll get started right away with Todd. What are best practices in setting up an emergency alert system?
We've been making our InformaCast emergency alerting and mass notification software for 20 years now. Hard to believe, but we wrote version 1 right after 9/11. That's a lot of time to think about what matters when you have these sorts of emergencies and how to make sure your emergency alerting and mass notification, your communication system actually works when those sorts of things happen. And we've kind of boiled it down to these three things. What does speed mean? That's probably pretty obvious, right? When you have emergencies, the period of time from the moment that emergency happens until the moment your emergency notification is playing, that's got to be as close to zero as possible. Minimum, that needs to be seconds, not minutes. Some of these events, severe weather, violent situations, they can happen and be over very quickly. Reach is simply this. I mean, we live in a pretty dynamic world, right? I just think about the typical K-12 school environment. You've got oftentimes multiple buildings. You've got indoor areas and outdoor areas. You've got loud areas like shop classes and band rooms. The challenge there in this world, and especially in your world, is how do you make sure when that notification goes out that you miss nobody? And last is urgency. There's a reason that fire alarm systems are loud and oftentimes have strobe lights, right? You cannot ignore that when that thing goes off. And our argument is, why wouldn't you apply the same principle to other similar life safety type of emergencies? Flash floods, wildfires. Apply the same principles to those situations. Make sure that whatever you do, it imparts that sense of urgency so that people believe it and they take action. Speed, right? How can you shrink that window from the time the emergency happens until the time that alert is playing? First, have those emergency notifications pre-configured in your system. Then you have to think about, okay, what are those tool sets that are available to very rapidly get that alert sent on its way? Use multiple devices, distribute them throughout your environment so that the people in your organization who are authorized to do so get their hands on some sort of mechanism to trigger that alert when they become aware of a threat. You can trigger InformaCast alerts from IP phones, mobile devices, personal computers through a web browser. They're everywhere. Why not enable those? And then you can use panic buttons, both physical ones that can be deployed wherever you feel like you ought to put them, as well as virtual ones on the phones. And we even have options for wearable panic buttons around a lanyard that people can have on them at all times. Let's talk about reach a little bit. You already have lots of devices that have screens and speakers in them. And hopefully you're considering or already have a digital signage system which will have those screens all over the place. Use them for mass notification. But in addition, InformaCast has the power to simultaneously send your emergency alert message to any or all of these various systems, most of which you probably already have, to make sure that you don't miss anybody. Many of these are going to give you that other important criteria, which is urgency, right? That will play that human voice audio notification. As an example, let's do this. On the intruder alert, initiate lockdown procedure. So you can see when that alert gets activated, it's going to activate all those fixed on-premises systems with a single activation through those triggering tools that I just mentioned. What about the people who are not on the premises when this happens, but you might want them to know about it? Simultaneous to those alerts playing on premises, you can also set the system up to send those alerts to people on their mobile devices and their personal computers, no matter where they are. It doesn't matter if they've got their mobile device or their PC, we can reach them, you can reach them with those emergency notifications.